Well, good afternoon, everyone. I am Rufus Bill and would like to welcome you to another edition of Talking To. And Talking To is a weekly human interest program that you can tune in right here on Facebook Live as well as YouTube. And we have great conversations and great perspectives from three great perspectives. And we have one from a millennial who is also a law enforcer, as well as a husband, a father, and a great provider. And then we also have the perspective of an entrepreneur, of a woman, a mother, a wife. And it's just a great show. Then you have my perspective, which could be anything at any time. Nonetheless, though, having said that, we'd like to welcome Joanne Tolson Fuller. Good afternoon, Joanne Tolson. How are you today?
I'm great, great. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. And we'd also like to welcome our Justin Hearn. Good afternoon, Justin Hearn. What's going on? You good?
Hey, Justin.
Missed y'all last week for sure.
I know we
We
missed
missed you too.
you too. You,
Yeah, most definitely.
one of my friends called after the show, was like, "What y'all do with Justin?" I said, "What did we do with Justin?" I said, "How about you were enjoying Joanne and Rufus?" Y'all doing good today?
oh yeah. Doing good.
Doing
That's
great.
great. So this has been an interesting week, especially in the news with the Oxford, Michigan shooting of the 15-year-old who shot and victims and then killed some students, and it's just taken a wave across the not only the country but across the world with this violence with schools. And
Yeah.
it used to seem so strange. I think maybe Columbine may have been the really start of this. I don't know, that's over 20 years ago.
All right.
And it's just escalated. And here we are in 2021, parents trying to educate their children in the midst of a pandemic, sending their kids out to school. And then this tragic situation occurs. And I'm curious to know, Justin and Joanne, especially from a law enforcer's
hmm
perspective, what can really how can parents feel, or what can school districts do to try and to prevent this?
Um, I guess I'll go first, being that I'm the law enforcement officer. There is a number of things. I actually have a PowerPoint presentation that I would love to share with anybody watching today. I can come out to the school. I do it. I give it in churches and stuff like that. But
Hmm.
it's almost like how we prepare for fire drills, and we act as if the fire is happening. We practice that so many times a year. There are things that we can do to properly prepare for in the event that an active shooter happens in school or anywhere. It's an unfortunate situation. You cannot idiot proof life in the confines of stopping people who are looking out to do harm. I mean, it's hard to do that, but you can be prepared for it. However, the interesting thing to me is that in most public schools, and just about all Detroit public schools, they have metal detectors. I think that that's something that needs to be across the board now, not only in the inner city, but in schools in general. Having those safety measures in place can prevent things like this from happening. And, it's at the airport, and it's all these other places in the inner city, but it's not in our suburban schools. But I would like to see metal detectors be put in our suburban schools just as an extra layer of protection to have.
I agree. I really agree. And it's sad that they said they just had his parents in for a meeting just a couple hours
hmm
before all this happened. So evidently, as they're going back now, hindsight is always 2020. But as they're
Right.
going back now, they said the gun had to be in his book bag that he had with him where his
Right.
parents were up there with this meeting, in this meeting,
Right.
and they were talking about, his behavior. And it just makes you wonder, especially now that we see how the parents have responded to all of this, or not
Mhm.
responded, that I just envision those type of parents who, leave my son alone, or he's fine, or if you do any disciplinary action, we're gonna sue the school, we're gonna sue the district. So I envision that. That's how I envisioned it. Because to walk away knowing that there was some issues, and that gun was right there in his backpack.
Yeah.
It's really
It's
sad. It's
it's
it's it's
so
so
if
sad.
now this all happened the same day, or
It
this
was
was a
all on the
prior.
same day. They
Yes,
said
it
when they had
was.
called the parents in for the meeting, and then when they left, what was it, about an hour, 45 minutes, 2 hours later,
Exactly.
maybe, that's when he started shooting.
So my whole thing though is, I don't know what's going on with my camera. It's not off, but for some reason you guys can't see me. So I'll make this comment and
I
I'll
can
go
see
out.
you. We can
We can
see
Are
see
you.
you?
you.
I can see you.
Oh, I just
Hmm.
can't see myself for some reason. It's black. But the interesting thing is that I don't know what type of security they have, but I think a protocol, if anybody, especially if they made a drawing of somebody being shot, whatever, um, their article of clothing and bags and stuff at that point needs to be checked. And I just don't understand, how is he not sent home? The parents refuse to take him. No, I just don't get
That's why I.
how.
That's why I bet you. I bet you anything. I shouldn't say it that way because I don't know. I'm just assuming that, and dealing with parents in the past, that
Hmm.
they were probably those type of parents
Mhm,
that, we're gonna sue this school if you don't my child, and you better leave my child alone, and my child. You
mhm,
know. So I just envisioned that, because even after the fact, they wouldn't cooperate with anybody. They
mhm,
they took him home. They said hired or got a lawyer. Thought they were going to hire a lawyer, but they told him
mhm,
they were getting a lawyer. But seems like now he has a public defender. But and they, even after the fact, even after they got him, they still were not cooperating.
right,
So I just
and
have this feeling that they are those type of parents. Because I think
mhm,
I would have taken my child home. I think I would have taken my child home.
mhm,
Okay, what's going on? What?
mhm,
And on the and to add to both of your comments, if they bought this gun for their child
mhm,
and he has come to school and has made it obvious and made it known to not only to that teacher but to other students that there was something going to go down, I would have grabbed him and taken him home and said, "What are you doing?" Regardless if they had a reason that they think that validifies or solidifies his
or
action. But
or why not go check and make sure what I got? If I didn't take him, I'd be like, "Hey, where your gun at? Is your gun at home?" Wouldn't I like go home and make sure that
right,
especially if you know what I'm saying? Like, I would think to check that.
Right.
and
And
see,
I think we would, but I think I want to know. Because they said it wasn't just one gun he bought. The dad bought a few guns.
Mhm,
It wasn't just one, and he
see, I
bought,
didn't know that.
yeah. So I want to know if we're dealing with a militia family, if we're dealing
Sounds like
with,
it.
that's what it sounds like to me. I could be wrong, but that's what it sounds like, that this is a militia family, and they
mhm.
probably were training him, as part of that core.
That
I just,
organization.
it's just sad though. It's just so sad.
Yeah. So I
Well,
think
I knew there was going to be. Oh, go ahead, Justin.
no, go ahead.
I was saying, after the incident happened, and then it was reported, and then
Mhm,
we didn't hear anything about any names, anybody being hurt. I knew then that the school district was trying to get on the same page with the principal, the
mhm,
president of school board, the board of directors, because it was just too long of a time that we didn't know anything. And even though that a lot of the focus is on this family, the parents, the gunmen, and what they've done, when that settles down slightly, a lot of the attention is going to go to the school district, because they're going to wonder, why didn't you do or do better precautions of protecting these students here? Not,
Right.
Right.
these victims all across the board, the ones who were injured as well as the ones that killed, that were,
Hmm.
that were killed.
Right.
Yeah, it's a PR catastrophe,
It is.
all around. Also, I do know is that before names and stuff release, you want to make the proper notifications. So that could have been, that could have been involved in it. Whereas I don't want the parents of so and so to find out that their child is dead from the news. That's a notification that we want the police to make, or that we want to make ourselves before we put that out there. So that plays a part in it. But the most, and I don't want to say the most disturbing, because four, I think the deaths are up to four now. That is very disturbing. But as we talk about how these things were handled, the media chose to put out some innocent little pictures of this guy. Did y'all see that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Of,
these
of, the,
innocent
of the gunmen.
of the gunman. No,
Mhm,
first of all, they called him a gunman. No, he's a murderer. Call him what he is. Call
mhm.
him what he is. He's not a gunman. He's not somebody who is just out shooting. Or no, he literally killed at that time at least three people. Call
Right.
him an active shooter. Call him a murderer. But it's so interesting how media protects our white counterparts. I mean,
That's so
and then
true.
they went to go get the most innocent pictures they could find in this guy. And me just searching his name, I can easily pull up a picture with no effort of him throwing up gang signs, of him having a Glock hanging out his pocket. And it's like, this is what y'all put out here. And it's so interesting. Maybe that's what my next show is going to be about. We got to bring somebody from the media onto the show to talk about this, because that does not make any sense. But let him have been black, let him have been any other race, they would still be posting pictures of him. They could find anything.
Thank you. Thank
They
you.
he it would be terrible. And I think that's one of my, and like I said, I know people lost their lives, and that's all unfortunate. And I'm talking about just how this was handled. That makes me mad, because and then they titling this guy bullied.
Right.
Bullied. Oh, he was bullied. He's the bully.
He's the
You know,
bully.
you taking bullying to a whole nother level when you come to school and decide I'm gonna kill
I'm
somebody.
going to kill someone.
That's
Yes, you
not,
are.
yeah.
Now,
So it's just amazing to me that they portray him in that way.
now I did say, just from my standpoint and my perspective as being a news reporter in one of my lives. What we do when we meet in the mornings for our news briefing, and it's something that's called framing, FRAMING, and so
Mhm.
we are directed, or when I was a news director, I would direct the newscasters, or the news writers, to do a certain thing. So when you said that they found all of these innocent pictures, that was a direct command. We want to portray
Strategic.
this. It's strategic. We want to portray this young man as, wholesome. Doesn't he look like he could be bullied? And this is one of the tricks of the trade that we do.
Mm.
We've seen this even with like COVID, when there was so much COVID, and then they were reporting what the latest discoveries were with deaths and people who were being affected by the disease. And then you slowly saw that fade away because the framing changed.
Mm.
So you're right. That was one of the very first factors that I thought about. I said, black, white. There, everyone is being so, no.
He's bullied.
Mm-hmm.
How are we thinking about him? How are we? And don't get me wrong. I pray that this young man in this finds God, and I hope that his soul is restored, and he deserves that grace.
Yes.
Mhm.
But that's something different. Media wise, how can we consider him and not the people? How can we consider him over the people what he did? You know what I'm saying? Bullied or not,
Right.
once you decide to go and you're gonna take people's lives and stuff like that,
Right.
and you're gonna be an active shooter in a school that no, I can't. How am I considering you? You know what I mean? That doesn't make any sense, and it's downright wrong. And I don't know. There were several news stations, but shame on you. Shame
Yes.
on you. Like if
Yes.
this was the Breakfast Club, you deserve the donkey of the day.
The
You
donkey
you,
of
you really you do
the
you deserve it.
Oh, you're
That's
right.
true. I agree. I
I agree too.
agree.
But
Yes.
now, what really floored me, and they found them on St. Alban and Concord. That's
Now,
over there by Belle Isle, isn't
Listen.
it?
yeah, in an
Listen.
art
What?
studio not too
Don't
far.
bring that over here to Detroit.
Now, you gotta. And this is what I said when they went on the run. And I don't know if it's my cop instincts or what. And I said they're gonna be in Detroit because you gotta think where, if especially being from Oxford. First of all, Detroit is, other than Grand Rapids, is the largest city in Michigan.
Right.
And you're talking about a big place with a lot of crime, you know what I mean? With a lot of police activity going on, so it would be easier for one to lay low.
Hmm.
And not only do they, but just over the past year, I want to say there's been four instances. Most memorable, I don't know if you guys remember this, but there's a guy that was in Chicago or Ohio. I'm sorry, he killed his wife and his three children, came to
Yes.
Detroit, came to Detroit, and and had a shootout over here off of Jefferson, something. But people do, for some reason, criminals always flee to Detroit. Like this is like common. Like this is like really, really, really common where we see fugitives that are being looked for. They come into Detroit to hide.
It's amazing to me.
Yeah.
It's,
and
it's
it's
amazing and sad.
and sad. And obviously, the person that was at this building or who owned the building knew them
Hmm.
because they let them use the building.
Yeah. And I just seen part about 20 minutes ago when I was prepping for the show that the guy came forward who housed them, who let them come
Really?
there. He came forward probably about an hour ago now. So I'm pretty sure that harboring a fugitive or they're gonna charge him with
It's
something.
coming. Oh yeah. Oh,
It's
for
coming.
sure. For sure.
Well, I know if anybody would go, appears on my doorsteps that's been into
Not.
some shady business, no, you can't come in here.
No.
You
Nope. You gotta
Mm,
find
know,
somewhere else to go.
you got to find somewhere else to go, Daddy,
right.
cousin, Billy Bob. No, don't come over here. But seriously, it's really sad, and I know it's a parent's nightmare to even
Yes.
think that that's a possibility of happening. So we're full fledged into the holiday season. Do you all have some Christmas decorations up over there?
um, I got a reef outside, and I got some stuff coming from Amazon. I'm behind the ball.
You're on your
I'm
okay.
I'm
Yeah.
behind. I'm way behind the ball.
No,
Oh,
Joanna, I'm surprised.
I know I'm way behind the ball. Look, I have Garland sitting next to me right here. It's supposed to no, I don't
Yeah,
have
I
it.
put up.
I'm so
I
late.
put
I'm so
up
on the late show.
late show. I put up a reef on my front door and a reef on my side door.
Uh-huh.
And then I have this big reef that my mom gave me, and it lights up. And I put that out on the side. It looks nice. And then I've been driving in my neighborhood, and everybody has like Christmas lights outlining their picture window. So it's like it
Oh,
follows the whole picture window. So I said, that's good. I'm gonna do that. Let's say I tried it and
It
didn't work out.
no.
I
Oh.
don't know if I think the problem was the tape because me and my wife we did it together and we tried to line it up, and I left and went to the gym and came back, and half of it was up and half of it was down. It was just looking real crazy. So I took it down. But I found these curtains. It's like curtains, and it's like I think like 3 layers of stars or 2 layers of stars that hang
Mhm.
down. I'm just gonna take that up, and then that'll hang down. And I
For the
was supposed
picture
to bring
window.
my, yeah, for the picture window. Yep. So it'd just be some stars hanging down in the window. And I was supposed to bring my tree up, and it's still sitting in my storage closet. I didn't do it this week, so shame on me.
Shame on you. Let's see, both of you two, you all have you got the little grandbaby Joanne, and let's see, you got your little kids, so y'all got to really get that stuff going.
Yeah.
Listen at you, y'all. What you doing, Rufus?
Now, see over here, this is the adult house. So if any decorations go up, it's not for the kids. It's for the party.
All right,
No.
all right
It's for the
now.
party. It's for the party.
I'm gonna get right in 22.
22.
All right, all right.
Well, listen, everybody, we thank you for joining us today on Talking to Joanne Tolson Fuller and Justin Hearn. And if you have any comments or anything, you're more than welcome to write them in the chat. Also, we ask that you to like and share our shows. We want to at least get up to 100 people during this 12-week period, and so that we can just get the word out about everything that we're doing. Justin, do you see yourself now?
Yeah, that's why I came out and came back in. So I'm
Okay.
good now.
Oh, good.
All right,
Good.
perfect. And so, well, today we have a special guest, and we started a series called Young, Gifted, and Black, and we had an artist on the last time, Miss Mills, and she is an excellent painter, and she painted some beautiful things, and I should have had that prepared to show everyone what she did in that particular interview. And today, continuing that series, we have a very special guest, Joanne.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. We have a young lady. Her name is Rachel Moulden, and I've known Rachel since she was probably a little girl. I've known her mom, Gina, for a long time, probably 20 years or more. And so Rachel is with us today. She is an inspiring author. She has a new book out. And I'm just going to give you just a little bit about Rachel. Um, She is a native Michigander who enjoys cozying up with a good book, traveling, and listening to music. She has been writing stories since she was a kid, but got her first taste of journalism while working for her high school newspaper and while writing creative stories in her free time. She continued her love for writing by majoring in English at Oakland University and graduated with a bachelor's degree in English while minoring in Japanese. Oh my goodness, Japanese. When she is not creating stories or chatting about all things literary, on her book blog, Life of a Female Bibliophile, you can also find her writing up editorials about pop culture, anime, and fandom related things at Fandom Spotlight. Rachel's goal as a writer is to share imaginative stories with the world. Welcome, Rachel.
Hello.
Hello,
Thank you for
Rachel.
having me.
Welcome. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for being on.
Yes.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm
Yes.
excited.
So I'm going to brag for a second because I got my book when she first released this book. I was like, oh, so I had to get my book. She hasn't signed it yet, but we're gonna work that one out too. But because of COVID and all that stuff. But
Right.
But yeah, Rachel, first of all, I want to say I am so proud of you to see you grow up to be such a beautiful young lady and just moving forward. Yes.
Thank you.
So what made you said you were writing since you were a little girl.
Mm-hmm.
You enjoyed writing and reading and all of that. was publishing a book always what you wanted to do, or it just kind of came naturally? I mean,
I guess I would say from a younger age, I always liked writing stories and like reading stories. I was an avid reader, and I feel like most avid readers, in a way, want to either they become readers or writers or want to juggle both. And it wasn't until I got older that I realized I wanted to write my own stories and like publish them, but also like work in publishing in some aspects. So if like I didn't make it working like maybe, for example, like on the editorial side of publishing, I wanted to write my own stories and see my own works published. I mean, back in elementary school, there was a couple times I was like published for like anthologies for poems and smaller things, but my book is kind of like my baby. That's the first time I've ever written something full length. I mean, I've done journalism, journalistic writing for such a long time, but writing a book is so much more different than that. And it's kind of like you put your whole heart and self into it. It's like a very like personal experience.
Awesome. Was there an author in particular that inspired you, or that you wanted, ooh, I want to be like her, or I want to, was there somebody?
I wouldn't say anything in particular. I think I was just always inspired by the people I was reading, grew up. I always read all sorts of genres. I was always like very influenced to like read and how important literature was. I mean, I grew up watching like shows like Reading Rainbow, and I was already a reader, and then just enforced the power of creating these like imaginative stories and the powers that book holds and the powers of being able to see yourself or being able to relate to a book is just mind blowing. It's just so much fun to be able to create these stories, and whether it's contemporary or fantasy or you're writing a mystery, it's so much fun just be able to creating a world that somebody can immerse themselves in and kind of escape from the world for a little while.
That's
That's
great.
awesome. That's awesome. Well, Rachel,
Oh,
I have a question for you. When
sure.
you get into writing these books, and what what is the process like? What's the process like? So if anybody was thinking about writing a book, how do you create this space and say, okay, this is how I'm gonna set this up, this is how I'm gonna begin my writing? Like, what does that look like for you?
I mean, I think for anybody wanting to be a writer, to be dedicated in writing, you kind of have to kind of like make it like a daily goal or set a certain goal for yourself where you like want to write so many words a day, or even if it's not even going into publishing, but you want to write your own stories, kind of being confident in your own self, even though
Mm-hmm.
being a part of a creative is having a lot of self doubt and thinking, well, maybe my work isn't good enough. So just
Mm-hmm.
practicing by writing anything and everything every day. I mean, reading lots of different genres, I think is a good idea for being a writer. Like, say you
Mm-hmm.
want to write contemporary, well, maybe you should be reading contemporary, but you should also be reading fantasy or thrillers, or maybe you should be reading from a younger age. I don't think you should necessarily limit yourself to how should I say, one genre. And then
Mm-hmm.
if you feel really serious about it, then's the time to see if like whether you decide you want to self-publish, whether you want to go with a indie publisher or going with a traditional pub. There's so many steps, and publishing is such a very competitive world on its own, whether you're self-published, indie or traditional. There's a lot of competition. There's a lot of stories. It's a lot of work trying to get your stuff published. And not everybody gets their stuff published on the first try, but it doesn't mean you should give up. You should just keep writing it. And maybe if somebody doesn't pick it up, write it yourself and self publish it. I mean, we have so many more alleyways for getting books and different stories out there. And I think also with the help of like stuff like We Need Diverse Books and those kinds of movements, I mean, I was
Mm-hmm.
able to see myself in books growing up, but I think it's even better now that people can see themselves from all different different ethnicities, so many different stories are being told, and I think it's really
Hmm.
important to be able to get these different stories so we're not telling the same story and people can learn about other people's experiences because we only grow from it.
That's so true. That is so true. I love
That's
this
good.
book. As I was reading it, um, and what you said earlier about you can put yourself in. As I was reading it, it's like I could see. I was like I was there sometimes with the two girlfriends or I could see everything. And the book is based in Detroit, and so she talks about a lot of
Hmm.
the the things in Detroit. The Coney Islands and the waterfront and but it's really I could see myself or I could see them as I was reading. And sometimes I don't know what you call that, but you know how sometimes it's easy to do that, but sometimes you're reading something and it seems so far fetched or so
Right.
Hmm.
you can't connect to it.
Hmm.
What do you call that? What is that? Because I could really connect to this. Maybe it's because of the familiar area that you were talking about. A lot of things that you said, a lot of places. I knew those places. It's like, oh wow, okay. But what do you call that?
I mean, I don't know if there's a specific word in it, but it's being immersive. I think it's really a talent for authors to be able to immerse readers in their world, whether it's familiar or unfamiliar, or they're creating a whole different world for readers or experiences. Like, can I see myself through that character's eyes? Can I feel what they're feeling? Can I picture the places that they're going, whether I've been there or when I haven't? And so I think sometimes it's fun to write what you know. So I've been growing up in Detroit and living in the Metro Detroit area all my life. I thought, well, wouldn't it be fun to like write about all these places that are special to me, all the places that I've traveled to, and all the stuff that locals will read this book and they'll be like, "Oh my God, I know this place," or "Oh, Belle Isle, that's like one of my favorite places to go in the summer," and so on and so forth.
If you're just tuning in and viewing the program today, talking to our very special guest is Rachel Moulden, and she's an author, and she's written a book, Lost Love: My First Boyfriend, the Dia's Story. And I had a question, Rachel. So, what are some of your favorite places that you loved growing up, and as you grew up in Detroit, that you loved to visit?
Um, let's see. There's so many. I mean, I really like going to the DIA. That's something I always recommend for people who live in Michigan or live out of state. I mean, I love going to Belle Isle, whether I'm having a picnic there or just driving through. That's always been a place I like to go to. I just like being downtown and
Right.
being in the districts and seeing all the different things you can do. And we have the Detroit Riverfront, which is expanding all the time. That's one of my favorite places to go. It's just Detroit is full of so much like vibrancy and so many places, and a lot of people don't really realize what we have here until they come and visit, and they're just like there's just so much to do. So I kind of wanted to bring some of my favorite things and some of the beauty of the city to the book and showcase that for the readers.
Now, when you think about these places, and as you were writing your book, were you inspired to write the certain stories or certain narratives for the characters in the book because of the places that you loved in Detroit or that you love in Detroit?
Um, I'd probably say it inspired it. I was thinking of the storylines and what was happening with my characters and where they were going, and I'm like, okay, what would be a fun place to hang out on a weekend
Okay.
in the city? Okay, what would be a fun place if I was, going on a first date in the city? Just trying to think of these things that taking my own personal experiences of places I've been, but also bringing them in a way to connect it to places that are unfamiliar. So, kind of sipping through my own memories, bringing a little bit of myself,
Personal opinion.
sprinkling it, putting into
Okay.
the character.
Well, Rachel, I'm about to get all in your business. What was the first place for that
Okay.
date?
Look, I turned to the page, Rufus.
Huh?
No, I mean,
If you can tell.
honestly, I mean, right, never tells. But
You're right.
I just I just thought of like what are some like cozy little nooks or like what are places I see
Okay.
couples hang out or like spend time together or like riding their
Hmm.
bikes on like the riverfront. Like those are the places that like not only recreational fun, but can be like also some kind of like romantic themes in there.
Mhm.
And then I also wanted to just include some stuff because the character kind of goes on this like journey of self-discovery where she's not sure about her work as an artist and she has a lot of self-doubt and like I deal with self-doubt and being creative and thinking my work is not good enough. I mean, I wrote this book in the middle of a pandemic and we were
Did
all
you?
going through lots of emotions and different feelings and we didn't know what was happening. Now things are somewhat better, but things were so uncertain. So you're dealing with all that and you're writing a book. So it becomes this sort of outlet for just like think space and trying to
Mhm.
sort out everything that's going on. It was definitely an experience, I will say that much.
Mm.
So
So,
you. Oh, you go ahead, Justin.
okay. Now I was gonna say, so Rachel, what kind of book should we expect next? Or is there going to be a sequel? Is there a part two to this book, or what
Yeah.
can we expect to come next?
There is a part two that's supposed to come next. Now, where the story is going to be, I'm not 100% sure, but I do have
Hmm.
some ideas because I was thinking about setting it back in the area again, but I want to introduce readers to some other places that I haven't mentioned. So I think it would be fun to kind of keep the setting, but change it up and add some different elements.
Mm, okay.
So I have a question. So you mentioned some of the
Hmm.
characteristics of Nadia,
Hmm.
self-doubt. What are some of the other characteristics that she has?
She's very smart. She's very kind-hearted. She's thoughtful. She's very shy, which I think I kind of relate to because I myself, though I may not seem like it to people, I'm very quiet and very reserved. So I feel like I
Yes, she
kind of
is.
channel
Is
that a
she?
little bit. She's very shy in the book, and it takes her a lot to open up to others, but once she does, she just got so many ideas to share. But she has confidence, but she just knows that she has a lot of competition for what she wants to do and needs some time to kind of hone her art skills to see where she wants to further herself and take this as a career, or is it something that's like recreational fun for her?
Now, does she know the type of love that she wants? Has she envisioned it, or is she just willing to be open and just try a different type of people that to see what really sparks her interest?
I think so. I think she's like I said, she's more shy. So it's like whoever somebody she would click with. I think she's a little
Okay.
more cautious with what she chooses with. And by her in the book, that's being like her first real like I should say semi relationship or something and experiencing all those first, it's kind of like almost a whirlwind, but it's also very like emotionally charged and with a little bit of angst in there because you know how teenagers and teenagers are when it comes to love. So
Right.
well, lots of emotions and everywhere.
And
So
she's just entering high school.
okay,
So
she's
Oh,
it's
okay.
that first summer love,
okay.
that first, yeah. So yeah, so it's her first. But yeah, I really like this character. Yeah.
Mm.
So Joanne, can you
Mhm.
reflect on that your that as a high schooler or preteen, how
Really,
you
Rufus.
felt?
Man, man, oh man, man, oh man.
Thank you,
I didn't
thank you,
know who I was going
Justin.
to ask
Thank
first, you or
you.
Justin. I said, we'll go with Joanne.
Really, Rufus?
Oh, so I guess Joe
that
don't
was so
want to
long
go,
ago.
so I'll go.
You
So,
said
But
too many things have
I
happened.
do remember though. But we had those crushes, and we had those.
mhm,
Oh my goodness,
mhm,
that's what it took me. It really did. It took me back to those times when you had that crush and you saw somebody and you had that crush on them and you wanted them to speak to you, and are they going to speak to you? Then when they spoke to you, you froze, and it's like, oh my God, he spoke to me. So I remember, and reading this, it took me back. It really did. This is a very good read, a very easy read, a very
mhm.
and I would recommend it for preteens, teenage. I mean, everybody. I enjoyed it myself. I really
Okay.
did. But it's yeah. But Rufus, for real.
I think uh, something interesting came up in my mind.
Okay.
Um, I went to Detroit School of Arts for people who don't know, which is a performing arts school. So everybody in my school were gifted to some capacity, whether it was singing, whether it was dancing, whether it was writing, drawing. We all did something. So um, in high school, I remember in ninth grade, I thought to myself, how am I gonna get ladies? That was the thing.
Uh-huh.
How am I gonna do it? Do I want to walk up to people, introduce myself, just like, because I wasn't afraid, like that wasn't me.
Mhm.
But interesting, like whenever you were late to school, they would like put us in this auditorium, and you couldn't go to your first hour. Well, in this auditorium, there was a piano in the auditorium. So I would go to the piano and I would play certain songs or just songs in general. And before you know it, I would have this huge crowd at the piano, and we'll be singing to play along. And I would play real
Rascal.
close attention to the cute ones and see what they was liking, and ask if they want a request. And so, it definitely brought back memories, because that's how I did it. I would learn their favorite songs on the piano, and then I would play it, and then before you knew it, I had swept them off their feet. You know what I'm saying? So that was that was earlier me.
That's, oh, that was the earlier you.
Yeah, that was earlier me.
So Rachel, does the character have girlfriends that she confides in, or does she write a diary, or is she using social media also as an outlet to
Mhm.
reach out to friends or to express herself?
So in the novel, her best friend actually, they always like spend time with each other like every summer. And her friend ends up going on a family trip where sometimes she usually goes with her friend's family, but she can't this time because it's kind of like a special family only thing. So they end up, kind of FaceTiming, Skyping, back and forth throughout the whole summer. And then additionally, to make up, kind of help ease like the gap from her friend not being there. She makes a lot of friends in the art program that she's a part of. And, there's all different characters from, different people from different backgrounds and different ages. And
Mm,
she really learns to connect to these people, not only as artists, but she sees that, they're on different like journeys that um like she is, and she wants to be artists like them. She gets inspired by them, she connects with them. She's like, I connect with these people because they like the same things I do. They know what I'm talking about. And like,
What I think is very interesting, everyone, is that in Rachel's writing, she refers to, or she uses the social media and as avenues that go along with her character, which I have not read any book recently that talks about what's going on today. So I think it's kind of unique because 10 years from now, when someone picks up your book, Rachel, and you're talking about any form of the social media that was so popular in 1920, they're going to think, what? Just like people
mm,
now in 21 who may have not read a book in a while that will read this book because of your writing abilities and see and be maybe introduced to like FaceTime and to other social media platforms, especially if they don't use them on a regular basis. So it's almost like you have a learning tool. You at one point
Mm,
in this book's life, it'll be a book of for history, but currently in right now, it can be a book of a learning tool that someone says she keeps talking about that FaceTime, or older people may say a FaceTime. So you're telling the story, which is great, and then you factored in some things that are present, and then some things that will be old, not even 20 years from now, just 5 years ago. And I think that's an interesting draw and an interesting path how you've included that in the writing, describing this character and what the character is all about.
Yes. Yes.
yeah. So,
Mhm.
what do you think, as it relates to writing, especially fictional stories? What are the characteristics or the elements of writing that makes a story good? That 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 we can immerse in it. What are those elements? How do you catch people's attention?
Um, I think you have to find a story that's like unique and captivating. And, some people can tell the same, like, how should I say, same like synopsis of a story, but it can be two completely different stories depending on the writer. So, and I also don't think, like, sometimes people think that your characters have to be likable. Sometimes they can be not likable characters, and that can relate to an audience more. I mean, I think having a cast of characters with a a variety of different personalities, maybe a familiar setting, or maybe, having the readers travel to like a fantasy land, or maybe like overseas, or having, a solid plot, solid world building, solid pacing throughout the story, keeping that momentum where the reader can pick up the book, they're reading it, they're hooked, they can put it down and they can't wait to come back to it again, the next time,
Hmm.
or they just read it all in one sitting, like I've done too many times to count.
Now,
Okay. And
is
for
this
and go ahead.
is this a self-published book?
This is actually published through Ornamental Publishing, so
Okay.
it's a really, really small pub, and there's a couple of other books under different titles under that. But yeah, it's under the Books Too Sad to Read, so they're kind of like angsty, reflective,
Okay.
different
Mm.
middle grade stories that will maybe make you cry a little, but you'll enjoy them in the end.
I love that. Congratulations on that whole process. Tell us a little of how that process is when after you've written the book, because I have a friend that's in the process of writing a book, and in terms of what you had to do to find a publisher, or what the steps after the book is written, what goes next, or what happens next?
So once you do find or connect with, or whether it's self-pubbed or traditional, is a whole another level of stuff. But for me, I connected with a colleague who asked if I was interested in writing books, and then they were looking for some writers. So I hopped
Hmm.
on. You set a deadline for, how long it would take for you to write the story. You complete it, and then it goes through, multiple kind of edits and rewrites, even edits and rewrites while I was writing the story.
Okay.
Uh,
Mm.
I learned a lot as I go. So edits and rewrites, and then, eventually gets to formatting and then publishing, and then once it's out in there, you're still not done because, you still have to market yourself,
Right.
and and get that book out there. For me, it's such a learning experience because I've been a reader all my life. I've been a writer, but not in the sense of doing like novels and stuff. So I'm like, people are like, you gotta, get your book out there and talk about. I'm like, I just think so much like a reader, so I have to think more like an author now, which I'm so
Uh-huh.
grateful for the opportunity to be able to write. But it's you kind of learn as you go. Everybody writes differently, everybody edits differently, everybody gets queried differently. It's a lengthy process. People
Hmm.
think you write a book and it gets published just like that, but it's not always the case. There's a lot of like things that happen after, everything is finished, especially when you have editors that have to format the book and things, that your editor goes over with and says, okay, maybe this was changed, or maybe we need to clarify this. And you have to look at the story from an outside perspective in a way and think like, okay, well, readers understand this. Is this clear enough? Does the story sound, is the pacing good enough? So,
Hmm. And what's interesting about you wondering if readers will understand, I always think of that when I send a text. Of course, that's nowhere on the level that you are as an author, but I always look to see, do they understand what I'm really trying to say, which is very important when you read a book. There was a local television newscaster, and he wrote a book. He's excellent in doing news. He was on for many years here in the city, but he wrote his first book, and he had me to come over to the book signing, and he was very excited about it. We got the book. I got the book, came home, and I couldn't get past like the first chapter
Mm.
because I don't know on what perspective of what angle he was writing. It seemed like it was coming from three of the characters all at once. Now, maybe that's a particular style that I'm not accustomed to, which made it difficult for me to follow. But I agree with you. It's very important that the reader is able to follow what
Mhm.
you're writing and can follow your train of thought and your style of writing. You're very correct.
mhm.
So I also have a question. When you're saying with the editors and the writing, the rewriting, the editing, the querying, and all of that, I hear that sometimes it can be really frustrating,
I can
Mhm.
imagine.
because sometimes I've heard that, well, when they got finished with it, it seemed like it wasn't my story anymore. So can you kind of expand on that? What happens during that time? Because sometimes they'll say, "Well, no, this you need to take this out, and you need to rewrite this way." And when people feel that way, the frustration of it. So can you just kind of share with what that really is? That frustration, that process, I guess.
I mean, I think it also depends too on like rapport between you and your editor, or like your team, or whether you're doing it by yourself or you're paying somebody to edit it, or going through a small pub. It can be frustrating because like when you write stuff that is your baby, like your personal project. You put like all of yourself into it, whether it's novel or it's writing like journalism or stuff, I think it's something that you accept when you go into that career or want to do that kind of work, that your work will always be edited because sometimes it has to be formatted to say like go with a website, to match that style of text and that style of writing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it hurts, I think, the first couple of times, but I think there's some kind of acceptance. Okay, like, okay, maybe my writing isn't as clear enough, or maybe I could be conveying this message better, or maybe I could be writing this differently. So rather than trying to be so frustrated about it, I try to take it as constructive criticism, because I dealt a lot with that as being an English major, especially when I got in my upper level classes. I would write papers and I would think they were like the best things ever. I mean, I poured like my blood, sweat, and tears in these papers. I would stay up all right. I had my friends like peer review it, like, and they weren't even my class, and I would get it and my grade would be like, "Wait, what? I worked so hard on this." Like, I don't understand, but I think that kind of harsh grading from my professors kinda gave me some thicker skin about taking constructive criticism from my own writing, and in turn making me be a better writer. And at times I was like really bitter about it because it's like, you're changing my work, and like I thought this paper was clear and I thought it was good, but and then I thought, okay, well, maybe I could be doing something differently. So you just kind of have to learn to take constructive criticism, but also be like in your feelings and, allowed to be frustrated and hurt, but not to sit into it in too long and then try to keep moving on doing the next thing.
When I got out of school and I went to work at WQBH Radio, and I was in the news department, and I was a news writer and on air news anchor. And so my very first time that you open the mic and I've written this news story, and the owner of the station was always at the station and also had a show on the station. So I followed her show, and the news came right after her broadcast. So she would be in the control room, and I'm reading this news story, and I've written it, and I'm talking about it. And so she asked me a question while after I finished the story, and I was kind of lost for words. And then I finally gave an answer, and she said, "Well, thank you, Rufus." And as soon as we were off the air, she came into the news studio control room, and she says, "You talking all them big words? Don't nobody know what you talk about. You don't even know what you talking about." So it's so important, like you say, to make sure that it's plain and that people can understand it. And, I was thinking while you were explaining that, Justin. So whenever you're writing your sermons and things of that nature, do you have that same kind of experience as to wonder, okay, am I clear? And will people get the message? Do you share the same sentiments as Rachel?
Yes, I think that that's huge because what's the point of putting on this presentation to be able to reach people if it's not indeed reaching them? That's why anytime you ever hear me speak or preach a sermon or anything, I'm heavy on examples. I'm heavy on real life because you may not understand what happened between Jesus and Nicodemus. But if I tell you about me in a conversation I had with my son, then you get it.
Okay.
So I tend to give the scripture, then give a worldly example, for lack of a better word, so that I make sure the person's understanding it. But as a Mark, my wife hears all my sermons before anybody hears them.
Okay.
The revelation, the example, and I let her. And it's tough because sometimes I'll be like, "Oh, this is gonna be good, babe. Look, listen to this. Listen to this. Look what the Lord told me." And then she'll be like, "But that don't make sense." It's like, but God, like, no. And it's like, all right, man.
It was good
I knew I shouldn't have asked you. Right.
You ain't the preacher.
Right, exactly. But I think that what that does is that caused me to, even though it doesn't feel good, it caused me to dig a little deeper. And I think what that does is it just brings out more perfection. So definitely, it's a huge part. And honestly, I want to say it's the most important part because if people cannot understand, comprehend, and digest what you're trying to tell them, what good is it to hear you? What good is it to read it?
I agree.
That's so true. That's so true. So Rachel, we know that. Okay, this is. I mean, I can see this being a series.
Wow.
Of books because but I'm not putting that. I'm not saying that. That's on you. But besides, your novel, I know you write other things. So you've written news articles. You write poetry. Give us just some of the other things that you also have written in the past or still writing.
Let's see. In the past, I have done some like journalism for as far as news writing goes, so writing like local news pieces. So I would do a lot of like feature bits about like maybe different artists or different people in the community, which I really enjoyed, and trying to, talk about like what they were doing and then like kind of give them some, press about like different events or different um things that were going on. So that was really cool. I mean, for what I do right now for Fandom Spotlight, it's really fun because I'm heavily invested in like fandom. So I get to gush and talk about all things on fandom aspects. We get to talk about movies, TV, animation. And while that's still like journalistic, it's a little more fun and playful. So I get to really have these alleys to talk about, things that, I relate to, or things that I've grown up with that I really enjoy, and have other people connect with that too. Like, oh, I love that show, or oh, I love those movies, or yeah, you're right. I never really thought about X, Y, and Z like that. So in between that, doing creative writing. I mean, let's see, I started a book blog back in 2013. So I've been running that for about 8 years now. So just writing and talking about books. I always wanted to have like a sort of avenue to talk about what I was reading, or talk about literary things and just other things that were happening in my life. So it kind of acts as a sort of place to talk about books, but also like in a way of sort of like a diary, and letting people in and letting people read that, and connecting with other readers, from all over.
That is awesome.
Yeah,
That
That
is so
yeah,
is.
awesome. And
it
I
is
just have to
awesome.
say, I'm still a bookworm. And so I love to read. And so I still love books. I know a lot of people they like Kindle, they like all of
The
that.
audio.
I
Audiobooks.
love turning pages. I love, because as I'm reading, I know you probably can't tell, you probably can't see them in here, but I mark things. I just
Okay.
kind of, I'm one of those. I still love my books. I do. Um, so where do you see this going? With that being said, where do you see this going? Do you see people going back to books? Do you see people, or is it just kind of even? Do you see people still doing electronic reading? Where do you see us, say in the next, I'm gonna say 3 to 5 years, when it comes to books?
It's hard to tell because technology is always shifting and changing. But I
Yes.
think books are so much more accessible to people than they were before. I mean, when I was riding public transportation, I would listen to audiobooks, or I would listen to podcast stories, or I would read on my phone, or I would read comics on my phone. I mean, you can take things on the go when you're busy. You can, listen to stories while you're cleaning in the house. And, most of the readers and the friends I know and people in the bookish community, we all still love our like physical books, but we also love our electronic books. So you can kind of flip back and forth. Like, say you're in a reading slump, and all you're reading is like Kindle books, you can switch to paperback, and maybe that might help you get back into books again, or vice versa. I mean, I think the formats will always be changing, but I think paper books will still be here for a lot longer. I mean, the sales have shown that people still love to read paper books. I think there's just more avenues and more places for people to get books, and different ways for people to read books, and it's more accessible for them to digest. But I don't think paper books are going anywhere for a while.
Well, that's
Yeah.
good to hear. And I do love my audio, especially when I'm driving, when I'm sewing. Sometimes I don't want the TV. I just listen while I'm sewing. I listen to my audiobooks. But yeah,
Hmm.
that's great.
Rachel, so I'm putting you back on the spot. So I see that you're
Okay.
sitting in front of your bookcase.
Yes.
Give us three titles of books that you're reading or that you have read that's on that bookcase there.
Oh my God. So let's see. Um, wow. Yeah, because a lot of these books, fair disclaimer, some of these, this is like my, how should I say, my TBR bookshelf. So some of these are
Okay.
books I have yet to read. So maybe I should just, let me see what I have. Maybe I should just
See, Rachel, I
talk
need
about.
that zoom lens on here, not right
I
now.
Oh,
know.
I'm telling you.
Then I wouldn't have
I
needed
mean,
to
I'm
ask
the
you.
same way.
Zoom right
I'm
on
the
in some of
same
those
way because
titles.
when people do all these like Zoom things now, I'm always like looking to see what people
Right.
have on their bookshelf. Like, I want to read that, or ooh, that's interesting. Oh, they don't seem like they would be reading that, because I like to
Right.
read everything. Um, let's see.
Just
Oh, come
grab
on.
one randomly.
Yeah, just grab one
Just
randomly.
grab one.
Then you can see if it's
Okay.
the title.
Let's see. I don't have too many.
Ooh,
Have not read this,
that was way in the back
but
in between them books.
It was.
but
Now that
I have
beloved.
not. Yeah, that's Beloved by
Oh,
Tom.
that was
I have
good.
not read this one. I've read a couple of her other stuff. I feel like
Okay.
I'm waiting mentally to read Beloved because I've heard it is a experience when I read that, and I
Yes,
gotta
it
be.
is. Did you see the
I'm a
movie?
mood reader.
Ah,
Yes, I'm such a mood reader, so I have to be in the right mood to read certain
exactly.
stories. I envy people that can read anything at any time, but sometimes I'm just like, I want to read stuff like this, but I'm like, my mind is just
Won't take
Oh,
let
not,
you.
you have
know.
to be ready for that one. You do have to be ready
Yeah,
for it.
exactly.
Yeah.
So that would be one.
Mhm.
Trying to think. This one. What else can I pull off of here?
I don't know what's on
I'm
that bottom
trying.
shelf that
Just
you keep
just
going down
grab
to.
one.
That bottom stuff.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Let's see. Um,
She said, I'm not coming back on talking too."
oh my god.
Yes.
That put me on the spot. Okay. This is really random because I don't really read a lot of superhero comics,
Okay.
but I really enjoy this Young Avengers series.
All right.
I'm not a huge, how should I say, Marvel or DC reader. I do love like graphic novels and comics, but I'm more like not as much superheroes. I like reading like all the other stuff. So this one's a
Right.
pretty good series if you like Marvel or like younger versions of like characters that we know.
Now, see,
Um,
I like because now you said you have to, as a reader or a writer, you should read a variety of certain narratives, and you've proven that you live by what you say. But you know,
I do.
before
I mean, I've
before
always.
what were you going to say,
Oh, sorry. Go
Rachel?
ahead.
No, you
No,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
I was
Oh, I was
just
just gonna say I've always been interested in reading so many different stories. Like I know some people they only strictly read like one genre or another, but I just like I guess I'm like how'd you say like when I read like a whole bunch of books at one time, I just can't read like one book at a time. So I get bored with certain genres. So I'm always like reading like 4 or 5 books at a time. And I'm like, okay, this is nonfiction. Okay, let me move on to fantasy. Okay, let me move on to contemporary. Like I'm always jumping all over the place.
But that's your mood reading. Because I have 2 or 3
Yeah.
different books that I have. Because and then if I'm not in the mood for the love story, then I might go to the autobiography. So that's
oh
that
yes,
mood reading.
hmm
So it's
definitely.
whatever you're in that mood for. Yeah, I truly understand that.
Now, Rachel, before we let you go and you tell us the information about how to purchase your book, I know
Sure.
Joanne said, and I read, Justin and I read that in your bio, that your minor is in Japanese.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to
Say something.
stimulate us in the language that you know.
Oh man. Yeah.
Don't be shy.
Right. Now,
Oh
don't
my
be
god.
shy,
I am.
Nadia.
Uh, I'm trying to think of something to say. Um.
It's so nice to be here today.
Right. Talking to is the
Um.
best show ever.
Oh my god.
There you go.
Oh.
Gas us. Gas us.
I know. I know. What what to say?
I
I'm
know I didn't
sorry,
put
and
you
it's
on the
always
spot. That's
this
all
for
right.
all language people. When people
I
ask us to
know.
say something on the spot, I just completely like blank out. Um,
I think Justin and Joanne
uh,
would agree that when someone may say, "Sing something, Joanne,"
I can
or
Mhm.
never
"Play
think of a song to
something,"
sing.
right?
It's
It's
You
like,
can
like
never
what
think
do
of
I sing?
anything,
Oh my
everything leaves you
goodness.
at that point.
right?
Jesus loves me. I always go
let's see.
How about Merry Christmas? Can you say that?
Merry Kurimasu.
Okay.
to.
Well,
All
that sounds
right.
Japanese. Well, I tell you what,
Yeah.
Rachel. Next time, when you come on, then you're gonna have to
Prayers up.
right. You're gonna have to say something, and we're gonna make
Okay.
Joanne take
I
a
have a
couple of
language
lessons
lesson.
too, so you all can speak
Okay.
in Japanese together.
Okay.
I just want to say, Rachel, I just thank you so much for coming on today, and I'm so proud of you. I am so proud of you. To see,
Oh,
like I said
thank you.
earlier, just to see you grown up to be such a beautiful young lady,
Definitely.
and doing what you desire to do. You know,
Mhm.
I've known her since she was a little girl,
Wow.
and so I'm proud of you. And everybody get your book. Where am I?
You get,
Lost Love, My First Boyfriend. Get your book by Rachel Moulden. And Rachel, tell us where we can find your book.
So you can find it on Amazon. You can find it on Barnes and Noble as well as Kobo. So you can get it in digital form or paperback, whichever you prefer. But you can find it on all those platforms and give it a check it out. Maybe for the middle grade reader in your life, maybe for yourself, or maybe a reader that's looking for something a little different. But I think you find something to enjoy. I think there's something for everybody to enjoy in this book, and I had such fun writing and creating this, and I can't wait to
wonderful.
share more stories with everybody.
If someone would like to get in contact with you, maybe have you to come out and speak or do a reading, how would they do that?
You can visit me on my personal website, uh, rachelmoulden.com. You can also check out my blog if you guys like reading. It's lifeofafemalebibliophile.com. I am also on Instagram under my blog name, Life of a Female Bibliophile, as well as on Twitter under my name at Rachel Moulden. So you can check me out on there.
Sounds perfect. Well, I'm so glad that you were a part of our show today, and you were a great guest, and you were fun to talk with, and you played
Most
right along
definitely.
with what everything
Oh,
that we
thank you.
wanted you to do. Or I
Thank you for having me. I had so
You're
much
so
fun.
welcome. You're so welcome, and you enjoy the holiday season. Okay.
Thank you.
All
All right.
right.
Happy holidays to you as well. Thank
All
you.
right.
Happy
Thank you.
holidays.
So you two, Santa's wish list. Joanne,
Santa's wish
what do
list.
you have on your list?
Oh, just for some peace and just quiet and
Mhm.
it's been so hectic lately. It's just,
Mhm.
and I know life can't stop, but just you know, just love for everybody. Just can we just have one day without some bad news or something? I'm just tired.
Mhm.
Tired of funerals, tired of all this craziness. And I
Right.
know it's the world we
Mhm.
live in today, but whew, it seems to be too much. Yeah.
Definitely.
So
Justin.
um, so I saw that Macy's had these really nice Kohan,
Uh-huh.
um, almost like peacoats. Not really a peacoat, but
Mhm.
put you in a mind. They're only $99.
Okay.
They were really dope. It's like one, I think this one was tan and one was black, and I could use a new dress code. I could.
awesome.
So that's definitely on the wish list. And yeah, that's really about it. Um, I don't ask for much, or I don't expect much. I really enjoy being able to be a blessing to others. So it's a gift for me to be able to bless my children, bless my mother, friends, stuff like that. So, but I could use new dress code. I could. I need it. I need it. I gotta have it.
You gotta
I
have
need
it.
it. I need
What
it.
about you, Rufus?
So
What's on your list?
my list was those boots. that I posted
that you
on
posted.
Facebook.
Those are sweet though. They
The
have
mint
that, but you
green.
know that 70s look is coming back. That 70s
Yes,
look,
it
well,
is.
it's back.
It's back.
But
Yeah,
those were sweet.
that's that Superfly look right there.
Right. Joanne, did you read Justin's comment?
I sure did.
He was like, huh?
So you
Oh,
already
man.
know where to purchase those boots. You found them.
Yes, I did.
All right now.
And how much do them boots cost?
They were $1,700.
Ooh.
That'll be a lot of
1,700.
playing for me.
Mm.
Wait, I'm gonna put y'all on the road with me to get them boots. I got the singer,
All
I
right
got the
now.
preacher, and we got the piano player.
Let's go.
One night only.
This is
Revival, right?
Shoot.
I just need somebody to use Mona Nero Davis to lift that offering, and so we'll split it 3 ways and be about our business. So we want to thank everybody for joining us and talking to today with Joanne Tosin Fuller, Justin Hearn, and yours truly, Rufus Bill. And we look forward to being with you next week, 4:00 p.m. On Sunday, YouTube and Facebook Live. And you two have a great evening. And once again, it's been a blast.
Yes.
Peace.
Peace.